Good day, my dear viewers. I'm Seminarian Benji Angeles Abad from the University of San Agustin, St. Thomas of Villanova Institute of Philosophy. I will talk about why globalization is essential and will prove that globalization is already used as one of the tools to attain modernization and progress in one's island or country. So technically, I stand as pro-globalization. In the Philippine context, we can review history before the Spaniards conquered the Philippines in 1521. Globalization is already very evident. The border in the different islands is being used for trading goods. One evidence is the ancient trade system here in the Philippines. Agricultural Secretary Manny Piñol said that the trading of goods between Sulu, Tawi-Tawi Islands, and the islands provinces of the Philippines and Sabah, which is a federal state of Malaysia, has been going on for centuries, even before the Spaniards and the Americans discovered the islands. This means that globalization is happening in the form of barter system for many centuries already. We must employ the help of other countries to supply the needs and growth of our economy. So globalization is not only about the economy per se, but also in gathering and being aware of essential information, the intercultural perspective, languages, and political issues worldwide. We are now living in the 21st century with a very fast-paced technological advancement. We need to adapt to this current generation so we will not be left behind by other countries. This is why we should be aware of the importance of globalization despite of the negativities that other people are hurling against this inevitable reality. According to you, Matter, globalization means the speed up of movements, of exchanges of human beings, goods, services, capital, technologies, or cultural practices worldwide. One of the effects of globalization is that it promotes and increases interactions between different regions and populations worldwide. It means that globalization will speed up the process and the movements of exchange, which help us quickly adapt to the new generation of technologies that are being discovered. So information is essential nowadays. We cannot contain our people in one country without disclosing the public information that the people need to know. How much more if the issue is a worldwide issue? It is our right to know this information because we are human beings living in one planet. How are we going to deal in the stock market without globalization? How we will talk about our neighboring country, especially if the land we belong has not enough money to support the people's needs. How does the business partner abroad negotiate with us so we can realize higher value for our business efforts? How will we easily adapt to the culture of other countries, especially since some of our citizens are opting to work abroad? And finally, how does the global issue of COVID-19 pandemic be resolved if we will not tap the experts from abroad, most especially since they have better facilities and they also have the best medical experts from different countries abroad? For example, we have a Filipino scientist who is an expert in making the vaccine. However, due to the government's lack of support to give funds to that scientist, do you think he can create the vaccine by only relying on our resources? Absolutely, I can say that it is no. The scientist still needs the support of his co-scientists from different countries for us to have a vaccine for this virus that affects many lives. We need the other country, and this problem is a global issue that must be resolved with the other countries' help. So globalization will help us make the vaccine faster and effective If we allow other medical experts from different countries to use their resources, such as their state-of-the-art facilities abroad, including their valuable knowledge, experience, as well as expertise. If we limit or rely on one medical expert from one country, maybe this COVID-19 virus will last for a lengthy period of time, and thus higher death tolls will be recorded and poverty will inevitably grapple the nation. Many pandemics have been registered already, and one of these is the bubonic plague that is responsible for the death of millions of people. One of the causes of this plague is the bacteria found in the rats. Many centuries have passed. No one discovered a treatment on this bacteria until such time, or the treatment of bacteria, until such time in 1928 when Alexander Fleming discovered the first successful antibiotics of penicillin, where a lot of lives have been saved from the infections. The antibiotics were only discovered in 1928 because we solely relied on the European country in making this antibacterial formula. Globalization is essential so that with the help of the other medical experts from different countries, they can develop a higher chance of making a treatment on time and yet effective. In our current situation nowadays, if we are not going to consider the globalization in making the COVID-19 vaccine, the process of making it will be too long. The world economy will be affected, in particular to those countries who are only having a small per capita, in which they are solely relying on upon through the resources of tourism, business companies, products exchange, and the like. The COVID-19 pandemic causes a lot of damage to the economy, in particular here in the Philippines. During the lockdown, many people lost their jobs due to the nationwide lockdown that drastically declined the employment level that resulted in lowering down the nation's economy. And poverty was undeniably exacerbated. According to Statista, the gross value added loses 3 billion Philippine pesos in every select sector in the country. Imagining the loss of the gross value added that affects our economy. Yet one business sector is trying to uplift the nation's economy, and these are the people in the business process outsourcing owned by the other merchant from different countries. During this pandemic, the BPO companies were a big help to those who get their job lost and can help rebuild the country's economic loss. Imagine the scenario. During the pandemic, if we did not allow the other business from the other country, in particular example of these BPO companies, to operate here in the Philippines, in our country, setting the situation of the poverty experience by our fellow citizen, what will we do if we don't have this kind of connection from the other country? Absolutely. Without this globalization, for us to easily connect our partnership to the other country, we are going to stay as emerging country. Moreover, the Philippines is one of the tropical countries which is always devastated by the natural calamities like typhoons, earthquakes, and the other calamities that we have. So we all know what had happened during the super typhoon Yolanda, where thousands of people died and the flood washed out their houses due to the storm surge. Many people who survived in Tacloban lately asked for help, especially the basic needs like food, clothing, and shelter. Few days after the typhoon, many non-profit organizations from different countries extended help and support to our brothers and sisters in need. If we are going to rely on our government's resources and budget, we cannot suffice the needs of our brethren. Another example is the Marawi siege, where the culprit was the Maote terrorist group in Marawi, Lanao del Sur. Because of this, President Duterte declared martial law in that place. The terrorist group used high-end power arms that made it more difficult for our military officials to resolve. This war against terrorism ends for 5 months, with the other military officials from the other country like China and Russia, who provided essential military aid in the form of firearms. In like manner, the US and Australia provided valuable intelligence information to the Philippine Army. Generally speaking, the Geneva Convention, in times of military operations against terrorism, allow our country to invoke the aid of our ally nations to help combat such fatal scenarios. Therefore, globalization is inevitably needed for the progress of our economy. Information gathering, health and calamity response systems, and even for the essential survival of the nation as a whole. Thus, we should be open-minded enough to learn and embrace the valuable contribution of globalization. Thank you so much and good morning.